Riya Patel and Arjun Mehta seemed like the perfect couple, newlyweds glowing after a lavish Indian-American wedding. But within just 1 week, their fairy tale unraveled into betrayal, rage, and a shocking double murder that would leave an entire community stunned. The wedding of Riya Patel and Arjun Mehta was the kind of celebration that people would talk about for years. The Patel family had spared no expense to give their daughter the day she had always dreamed of. Gold ornaments gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers. Colorful saris swirled across the dance floor, and the air was filled with the fragrance of jasmine and incense. Relatives flew in from India and friends traveled from across the United States to witness what seemed like a perfect union. The ceremony was traditional, yet modern touches made it unforgettable. Riya's red and gold bridal lehenga shimmered as she walked down the aisle, and Arjun, dressed in an ivory sherwani, smiled with the confidence of a man who seemed to have everything. Guests whispered about how beautiful the couple looked together, how their future would surely be bright, and how lucky Riya was to marry someone so successful and charming. For Riya, standing under the mandip with her family watching, it felt like every sacrifice her parents had made since immigrating had finally come full circle. She believed she was marrying a man who would honor her, protect her, and build a life with her filled with trust and love. The festivities carried on for days, from the haldi to the sangeet, with music, laughter, and endless photographs. Every smile Riya gave was genuine, her heart filled with hope. Arjun held her hand tightly, whispering promises of forever, while their families exchanged gifts and blessings. The union seemed blessed, the kind of story that began with a fairy tale wedding and promised a lifetime of happiness. Yet beneath the glitter and celebration, fate was already preparing to test the strength of those vows in a way no one could have imagined. Only a few days after the wedding, the glow of newlywed life began to fade for Riya. She had expected to spend her first week of marriage basking in romance, enjoying quiet breakfasts together, late-night talks, and planning their future. Instead, she found herself alone more often than not. Arjun, who had once seemed so attentive, now appeared distracted and restless. He spent hours scrolling on his phone, typing furiously and quickly locking the screen whenever she approached. When she asked what was wrong, he brushed it off as work stress or family obligations, but his answers felt thin, rehearsed, and unconvincing. At first, Riya told herself she was overthinking. Marriage was an adjustment, and maybe Arjun just needed space. But as the week went on, the excuses piled up. He claimed to have sudden client calls, stepped outside to take them, and returned with vague explanations. Nights that should have been spent together were cut short by him saying he was too tired or had deadlines to meet. He began coming home later, sometimes carrying the faint scent of expensive perfume that Riya didn't recognize. The smallest details gnawed at her. A lipstick stain on a shirt collar that he dismissed as a laundry mix-up, hotel receipts tucked into his wallet without dates that matched his supposed business schedule, and his refusal to let her borrow his phone for even a minute. These weren't the behaviors of a man who had just vowed lifelong loyalty. Riya's mind churned with unease, torn between denial and suspicion. She replayed the wedding vows in her head, the promises he made in front of hundreds of people, and wondered how quickly they had lost their meaning. Something was very wrong, and her instincts told her that this was not just her imagination. Riya's growing unease finally pushed her to act. One evening, when Arjun claimed he had a late client meeting, she decided to follow him. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel as she trailed his car at a safe distance through the city. Each red light felt like an eternity, her heart racing with the fear of what she might discover. After half an hour of weaving through traffic, he pulled into the driveway of an upscale apartment complex, a place Riya had never seen before. She parked down the street, her breath shallow, and watched as Arjun stepped out of his car carrying a bottle of wine. There was no trace of urgency, no sign of work stress, only anticipation in his stride. From her hidden spot, she saw a woman appear at the doorway of a well-lit unit. Tall, blonde, and dressed elegantly, she greeted Arjun with a smile that spoke of familiarity. He kissed her cheek as if it were routine, then disappeared inside. Through the half-open blinds, Riya caught glimpses of them laughing together, their bodies close, their gestures intimate. The scene was undeniable. Riya soon learned the woman's name was Chloe, a colleague Arjun had often mentioned casually in the past. He had claimed their interactions were purely professional, but the truth unfolded before Riya's eyes in a devastating display of betrayal. What hurt most was not just the cheating, but the timing. Barely a week had passed since their vows, and already he had run back to another woman. Sitting in her car, Riya felt her chest tighten with disbelief and rage. The wedding memories she had cherished only days ago now felt like cruel illusions. Her husband, the man she had trusted with her heart, had chosen someone else almost instantly. The fairy tale had shattered. The shock of discovering Arjun's affair quickly hardened into something darker. At first, Riya wept in silence, hiding her tears from her family and friends, unwilling to admit that her new marriage was already broken. But grief slowly gave way to anger, and anger began to sharpen into cold calculation. She replayed every moment of the wedding in her mind, the smiles, the promises, the blessings from her elders, and felt them transform into mocking memories. The humiliation cut deeper than the betrayal itself. She had been paraded in front of hundreds of people as a bride, only to be discarded before her bridal mehndi had even faded. Instead of confronting Arjun outright, Riya began to study his movements with precision. She checked his laptop when he was in the shower, memorized his email passwords, and scrolled through his phone while he slept. The more she uncovered, the clearer the picture became. He had not stumbled into a mistake. He was living a double life. His inbox revealed hotel reservations and secret dinner plans. His text messages to Chloe were filled with tenderness, the kind of affection he had stopped showing her. The betrayal was not an accident, but a choice repeated again and again. Riya realized that her life had been reduced to a cruel joke. She was supposed to be the devoted wife, the one who waited at home while her husband shared his passion with another woman. The thought made her blood boil. Yet rather than lose herself in despair, she began planning. She imagined how justice could be served, how she could take back control of a story that had been written without her consent. Quietly, methodically, Riya transformed from a heartbroken wife into a woman preparing for vengeance. The mask of patience would remain, but beneath it, rage was waiting. The weekend Arjun had planned with Chloe became the turning point in Riya's mind. She knew exactly when they would leave, what excuse he had given her, and where he intended to go. With each detail she gathered, the plan formed more clearly, and her resolve hardened. Instead of confronting him in a shouting match that would end with more lies, she decided to lure him into a trap he could not escape. She rented a secluded cabin on the outskirts of the city, telling Arjun she wanted to surprise him with a private dinner before his supposed trip. Her voice was calm, even playful, when she mentioned it, masking the fury beneath. In the days leading up to the dinner, Riya prepared carefully. She bought a large kitchen knife under the guise of picking up supplies for the cabin. She packed candles, wine, and flowers, decorating the space with deliberate care to make it appear romantic. Everything about the scene was designed to lower his guard, to make him believe she still adored him. When Arjun arrived at the cabin with Chloe instead of alone, Riya's heart pounded, but her face did not betray her thoughts. She welcomed them, her voice steady, her eyes cold behind a soft smile. They drank wine, laughed, and for a brief moment it seemed like any other evening for them, until Riya made her move. The knife she had concealed in her bag glinted under the low light as she struck with a speed born of rage and betrayal. Arjun barely had time to react, and Chloe's scream was cut short almost instantly. Within minutes, the cabin that had been staged for romance turned into a blood-stained scene of violence. For Riya, it was not just murder, it was justice delivered by her own hand. When the deed was done, Riya's next thought was how to cover her tracks. She wiped her fingerprints from the wine glasses, scattered belongings across the cabin floor, and left wallets and jewelry in plain sight to create the illusion of a robbery gone wrong. She even cracked open a window to make it seem as though an intruder had forced entry. To anyone who might stumble upon the scene, it was supposed to look random, chaotic, and disconnected from her. But despite her careful steps, small mistakes lingered, details that would soon betray her. The police were called after neighbors near the cabin reported strange noises followed by silence. When officers arrived, they found Arjun and Chloe lifeless, the staged robbery too neat to be convincing. Detectives immediately sensed something was off. Expensive electronics were untouched, and the scattered items appeared placed rather than tossed. Suspicion grew as they dug deeper into the couple's lives. Phone records quickly became the first crack in Riya's plan. Investigators discovered she had tracked Arjun's messages and location in the days leading up to the murders. Surveillance cameras captured her car parked near Chloe's apartment more than once, evidence that contradicted her claims of being at home. Forensic teams uncovered receipts for the knife she purchased and traced the cabin rental directly back to her credit card. Each discovery pointed more clearly in her direction. When questioned, Riya tried to maintain her composure, but her calm demeanor only drew more scrutiny. Detectives noted the absence of grief in her tone, her answers rehearsed rather than emotional. Slowly, the walls of her deception closed in. The image of the perfect bride crumbled, and she was no longer the grieving wife but the primary suspect in a chilling double murder. The trial of Riya Patel drew enormous attention, transforming from a local crime story into a nationwide sensation. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, community members, and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the fate of the young woman who had gone from bride to killer in a single week. Every detail of her life was dissected: her upbringing, her marriage, her state of mind, each angle fueling debates about whether she was a victim of betrayal or a calculating murderer. The prosecution built its case methodically. They emphasized the deliberate steps she had taken: renting the cabin, purchasing the knife, staging the scene to mimic a robbery. They argued that Riya had not acted in a sudden fit of passion, but had instead planned the crime with chilling precision. Jurors were shown the receipts, the surveillance footage, and the forensic evidence that tied her to the murders beyond doubt. Photographs of the cabin, once meant to be a place of romance, were presented as proof of her cold resolve. The defense painted a different picture. They described her as a woman pushed to the edge by betrayal, humiliated in the earliest days of her marriage. They pleaded for sympathy, claiming her actions stemmed from emotional devastation rather than premeditated cruelty. Some in the courtroom nodded, understanding the pain of infidelity, while others shook their heads, unwilling to excuse the violence. After days of testimony and hours of closing arguments, the jury withdrew. Their deliberation was brief. When they returned, the foreperson read the verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Riya remained stoic as the sentence was delivered: life in prison without parole. The story that began with a dazzling wedding ended in a cold prison cell, a haunting reminder of how love, betrayal, and rage can collide in the darkest of ways.